Welcome to Hassle-Free RE, the show where we share tips, tricks, and stories from the short-term rental industry and business alike. Hosted by Dave Menapace and Will Van Wickler. They'll help you navigate the exciting and ever-evolving world of short-term rentals. Whether you're a seasoned host or just starting out, they've got something just for you. In each episode, they'll bring you insider insights, expert advice, and real-life stories from hosts and industry professionals who have been through it all. They'll cover everything from maximizing your rental income and profits to creating unforgettable guest experiences and handling unexpected day-to-day challenges with ease. Are you ready to discover the secrets to running a successful short-term rental business without the hassle? Then let's get started. This is Hassle-Free RE.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hassle-Free RE. I'm your host, Dave Menapace, president of 5-Star Co-host, as well as co-founder of Launchpad Short-Term Rental Consulting. Here with my man, Mr. Will Van Wickler, New England's #1 short-term rental real estate agent. What's up, Will? How we doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's Friday. It's a great day.
It's Friday. I love it.
We've got a great guest. I'm excited.
We do. It's his second, actually might kind of be third round on the show. It's the third round. I think our first three-peat. I like it. That's right. We did, Kenny, you and I did an episode. And then we had you on to go over the Sunday River Market. So in case anyone doesn't know, I guess we'll introduce you a third time. So
there we go.
Three-time champ. We have Mr. Kenny Bedwell. He's the founder of STR Insights. If you haven't heard of that website and what they do, two things really. There's the data analytics tool for helping you underwrite properties and markets and seeing how to find and pinpoint a property and a specific house so you can have a cash flowing asset. STR Insights also has a consulting branch. They help investors and really just people that wouldn't necessarily consider themselves investors, but want to try and find a cash flowing asset for Airbnb anywhere in the country. They go right to STR Insights, a lot of great clients we share with them. And then he's also the host of Cash Flow Positive. Dun, dun, dun. A really good podcast and actually show, because I know you market that in a lot of places. So Kenny, welcome, my man. How are you? How's things?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. That was quite the introduction there. I got a long list of things I got. So, yeah, I guess I do a lot. So
yeah, I love it. I love it. He's also an amazing presenter. I get to see Kenny usually once or twice at a lot of these different short-term rental conferences, and overall, great, awesome. I bet he's a killer husband and dad too, because I know you do those things. So,
and he's an influencer.
That's right.
I am allergic to that term. So, but I do have a little bit of influence though that I'm catching on to. So
I'm just a fan of the reels. That's it.
Yes, the reels are awesome. Oh man, the one about to drop today, you guys are gonna. I'm
excited. Well, if nothing else, you are definitely a person of interest, and you are so interesting, and that's why we wanted you back on again. You know, there's two topics we really want to cover today, and I'm excited about them. The first, just so the guests here and whatnot get them prepared. The first one, we're going to talk about STR markets. Now, this isn't going to be us throwing a bunch of markets at you and telling you to go buy there. What we're really trying to do is help you dial into maybe some markets that were closer than you realized, or understand how you can go about leveraging STR Insights, as well as just, information on the web, as well as networking with other realtors, like how you can find different markets where you can find a property that suits your goals. The second half of this show, we're going to be talking about Darkhorse amenities, how to identify amenities that you should put into your property to help you make more money. So with that, Kenny, somebody approaches you and they're like, hey, I really want to find a property. Maybe their goal is to cash flow. Maybe their goal is to use it a lot and offset their expenses. Where do you usually start them? How does that conversation usually kick off?
Yeah. So on the first calls together, people, it's really funny. I've gotten to a point where like by the end of the call, people are like, I feel like I just went through a therapy session.
Been there.
because it's a lot of like understanding their situation, why we're having this call to begin, like why are you wanting a property, and the answer, like if you're saying to yourself, oh well, I'm investing in real estate to make money, everyone's doing that. That's not really a reason why. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, yes, we make money from investing in real estate, and that's pretty much why we do it. We don't just do it to like house people for the goodness of our hearts, right? Like we're incentivized, right? Like I'm not saying we're not good people, but we're doing it for a reason. Usually it's with money. But why is that money important to you? What is that providing you? And for a lot of people, it's providing financial freedom. And so it's helping people understand like that driven why behind why they're actually investing in real estate, that helps them actually determine their goals. And that's really where we sit first. So we go like, okay, great. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to achieve from this? Because with short-term rentals, Dave, as we know, it's work, right? And if you don't have that goal, that intention behind it, it's super hard to stay motivated and excel in this industry. So yeah.
It's
and we
so
see a
interesting.
lot of people burnt out on short-term rentals. I see it all the time, where they just stop caring and then they blame the market or they hand it over to property manager. So I think that's so important. I see it every day.
Yeah. Yep. It's really interesting. In my line of work, we have the consulting business and the co-hosting business. It's funny. The discussion always opens up the exact same way. And I know for Will, if somebody wants, especially if they're like, hey, this house isn't working, I want you to sell it. I know you're always asking them, well, how far off from your goals are you? Like, where are we at here? It's really interesting. Let me ask you this. I bet you break down a lot of boundaries when people think that they can only buy hyper local to where they live. Am I right?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest limiting mindsets people have is that they can only operate within driving distance to themselves. Or, it's usually the driving distance one. So like, if I get all the time, like, well, if something goes wrong, I need to be able to go handle it. And I'm like, let's assume they're a doctor, somebody with something going on, like let's say a doctor. I was like, so like if you're in the middle of surgery and something's going wrong with a property 3 hours away, like what are you going to do? And they're like, well, I'd have to wait till I was finished and then I'd have to drive there. And you're like the reality is, I'm like, that's not going to make any sense for you. You're going to have to find someone local. So whether it's 3 hours away or 6 hours away or 15 hours away, it's you have to have the right teams in place. And so explaining that, like, really, that's not the major hurdle to get over, because you're going to have to do that anywhere, have the right teams, or you're going to take all your time and suck it into that property and self-manage. I find that I spend more time on the properties that are local to me within 20 minutes than I do on the ones that are, 10 hours away kind of thing. So
totally. To your point, I manage more properties in Sunday River, which is 4 hours from where I live, than I do Cape Cod, which is an hour and a half. And I think it's because my systems are so much better.
Yeah, they have
when
to.
Stuff goes sideways. Yeah, that's funny. So, but so true. Now, here's kind of an interesting question. Do you generally try and, I don't want to say influence, but when somebody wants to buy a short-term rental, how do you kind of break them into the distinction of like a beach home versus a lake home versus a mountain home? What should people start to think about? And, like I said, I was explaining to you, I found this really amazing market that I had right under my nose, and we managed some properties there. And, if one were to look at, one of the tools that are available to them, there's not a ton of properties there. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't realize was that was only because a lot of people live year round, and there was this amazing demand for people coming into Boston but not wanting to stay into Boston. And it's just like, I didn't have, it was news to me. And had this person never hired me as a co-host, I would have never known. So what kind of indicators or things can people look at if they're trying to start to identify some markets that not everybody's heard of, like the Smokies or, Orlando or whatnot?
Yeah. So when it comes to finding areas that are quote unquote investable, there's a couple things I like to look at. So I talk about understanding your budget. So you got to know what you can afford, because I assume the place that's near Boston isn't cheap. Maybe it is.
No.
But okay, yeah. So,
$1.5 million, about $1.5 million.
If I had a 500K budget, that just ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? Like it's unfortunately not gonna work. So understanding your budget and what you can truly afford is key to finding the right market. Number one. Number two, I think people have to look at their regulatory tolerance as well. Northeast. I mean, we all know this. Like it's kind of, here's a town, really stick your hand in a hat and there's the regulations. Like it's either they have it or they don't, or it's like something weird in between.
So, you're so right.
And
you're so right.
That's not everyone's going to love that. You know what I mean? And that's fine. But you got to kind of figure out like what you're comfortable, like what hoops you're comfortable jumping through, too. So it's more of like kind of a mental decision. But here's the biggest thing for me in finding new markets, because you're literally trying to find places that you've maybe never heard of before, or stuff around you that might make sense. The biggest one that I look for is revenue of individual properties. Not average revenue of markets, not 75th percentile, 90th percentile, or whatever. I literally, when I'm looking for new places to invest in, I'm literally just looking for properties that are performing at an extremely high level and making $200,000 or more in gross revenue. I don't care where they are, because that's part of the research process, right? I'm like, let's just see it. Let's open it up. Let's not put any limitations on, is it in this state, or is it over here or over there? Is it lake or beach or mountain? But that's, I don't really care. I'm doing it for investment purposes. But I'm just opening it up and looking at revenue, and you'll find, some of these one-off properties that are maybe hosting at a different level, or they have certain aspects about them that are different than all the other properties in that market. And I have found pockets in places all around the country where there's these properties that are making, like 2 or 3 that are making $200,000 or more, and the rest are all doing like 50, and you're like, okay, well, like what's going on here? And that's that exploration process, right? That's that. Okay, let's answer the why and start studying this market. Why are people going here? Why are these properties different? What are they offering than everybody else? And it's just kind of problem solving, right? It's fun.
Totally.
And then you call an agent there, you start getting, okay, well, yeah, I see the numbers. Like explain to me the experience side. Why are people actually going there? Why would someone want to buy a house there, and so on? So
you're not going to like the top lists to find the market, right?
No, hell no, because that's what everybody else is doing.
My favorite is one of those top lists. I mean, has grounds with regulation in it. They don't even allow short-term rental.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny is I had a client today send me she texted me. She sent me a picture of, one of the data providers, he who shall not be named. No, just kidding. They have a list of like the top national parks like to invest in. And I'm like, I pull up my list that I had out from like 2023. And I was like, here they are, and it's like, we've been there, done that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So while they're 2 years behind, we're playing chess, not checkers kind of thing. Right. We're not chasing where everybody else is going. We're trying to find new areas. And guys, I mean, there's over 12,000 markets in the United States. 12,000. Right. Like that's insane. Like there is the revenue to be generated anywhere. You just gotta you gotta know where, you gotta understand and research and get that comfort level. So
that's amazing. On top of that, our second part of the discussion, when we start talking about some amenities and whatnot, to your point, literally in this town south of Boston, 2 of the 5 properties. So we only do beachfront properties in that market. There's maybe like 50-ish rentals total in that town. And only about 5 of them have hot tubs, and we're 2 of those houses. And our houses make 50 to 100K more than neighbors.
Yeah.
And the other piece of that is always they're like a 4 or 5 bedroom. But all of the other properties just do 7-day, Saturday to Saturday from beginning of May through end of September. And then they literally think there's no demand outside that. So they turn off their calendars altogether. Like they're like, whew, great season, 65K. We nailed it.
Yeah. They're like, we've paid, the house payments made, utilities are covered. We're good to go.
And the biggest issue I see is a 5-bedroom home will just have 4 queen beds and 1 bedroom that's an office. So they're sleeping 7 or 8 people, where in that market, you don't have occupancy restrictions. That a 4-bedroom should sleep 10 people and a 5-bedroom should sleep 12. That's the sweet spot in that market.
And that's an opportunity. That's
it's an easy ask
right there.
It's an easy ask. And you do that with your hot tub and you're right on the ocean and you're only 20 to 30 minutes from Boston. We crank some of those houses that are beachfront. I hate to say it, they make more in February than my 5 bedrooms in Sunday River, only because they'll do 25K in February, and you would have never known that.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And then you get months in April, for example, you have the Boston Marathon. And then April seems to be when a lot of people are touring colleges from around the world. Mm-hmm. And so those are in that market. You don't really need to allow dogs like you do in other markets because so many people are actually flying in. So it's just fascinating. And to your point, there's probably about 6-7 houses that are doing north of 150K, and all the others are right in that like 40 to 50K mark. And they got a mainly tubs there too. You can get a hot tub financed and be rocking and rolling like in any other mountain market in New England. So yeah,
but that's not a market on a top list report, right? It's like, who the heck would
it's not on any list?
Made my whole life. I've never heard of it. Same with Acadia National Park. Like, that's not something people know about, but it's through research and finding these markets. That's, I think, is super, super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, okay, you found these properties, these one-off properties, and then you're like, okay, well, what's around there? And it's like, oh, there's a national park. There's a city nearby. They're on the beach. They're this or that. And then you're diving in and studying that data. And I mean, I don't know, like I do have access to data that other people don't have access to, but that doesn't make it necessarily easier to find things. It just means like I can dive in deeper when I do find things. So I actually search with the same tools that other people search with. I just have no more like, okay, let's look for these certain attributes or characteristics rather than just like, let's go where everybody's talking about.
Totally.
So I'm curious, through the intro process, before we jump into our subtopic, I think the biggest thing I see people struggle with is buy box criterias. And I'll often say, hey, go work with Kenny and these guys, because they're going to run you through this interview and this therapy session, if you will, to figure out the criteria, because so many people struggle. They'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I have 100,000 to put down, or this is my budget, or I need this return. And it's like, why? And where did you come up with it? Because that doesn't exist, right? Yep. It's just a weird criteria.
Well, yeah. And what's funny is depending on the client, some pay me for answers, some pay me to learn. So the ones that pay me to learn, they come to me and they say these like have these crazy expectations. And I've learned that people don't really like learn by you just telling, even though they want you to tell them, like, is this possible? I get that all the time. Is this possible? Can I do this? Is this like a thing? And I'm like, look, sure. I mean, somebody's doing it somewhere. So, I mean, technically it's possible, but what's the likelihood of that happening? And they're like, okay, well, that's really what I want to know. And I'm like, great. This is how you find out. Go and look at this data in these markets and look for these key things, and then come back and tell me how easy that was. And always when we get back, they were like, that was super hard. Like I found like 1 or 2 places, across the entire country. Like, and I was like, yeah, because you have unrealistic expectations. And I'm like, you found that out on your own. Congratulations. And so it's like, what's realistic now? And it's repeating the same process, but doing it in a way where they're understanding those characteristics that we're looking for. So,
and not being sold a false dream. That's the biggest
exactly.
thing.
Oh man, yeah, it gets it's insane. I get you go off. So yeah, there's a lot
That's
of
for
false
the
dreams
part
there.
2 episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
part 2 episode. Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. As a little preface, as a co-host, it's amazing how many times it happens a lot. Somebody buys a house with Will, they see like the revenue that they're projecting, and they're like, cool, I have this 80K that I want to use for the furnishings and reno. And it's happened to me. They get about 40K in, and all of a sudden they're like, no, we're going to hold that and we'll do it in the future. We'll do it. And then the house never performs the way they want it to. And it's just, you're always playing from behind. What is your suggestion to somebody who wants to jump in and do this? Like, have you ever, these days, do you see it working out where they can like add on amenities, or at least like to walk
Like
me
a
through
long-term
that, 'cause,
rental, do the roof
you
this
know.
year and then the driveway next year. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. I mean, look, so the way to like people get so emotional in not really the decision making process, but when they go to buy the home, and then when they're going to furnish the property and like the costs and things. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, emotionally it's exhausting, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and I understand that. But the problem is you have to lay out, like Will, you mentioned the buy boxes. So like, what is successful in these markets? So I'm looking at properties that are making, we'll call it $200K, $200,000. What attributes do they have? Do they have the hot tub, the saunas? Like they do. Let's save that for now. They have those things, right? They have all those attributes. And so if you're going to expect to make that amount, then guess what? You're going to have those things, right? Like, I know that's very black and white, but when people are spending all that money, they tend to go, well, maybe I'll wait and let the property like cash flow. But you have to change your pro forma at that point, because it's not going to make the revenue that you projected. And the mistake that people make is they don't update their numbers as they're going throughout the process. Meaning, like, I projected expenses at X and I projected revenue at Y, and that's what it's going to be. And then they're shocked when any of those things have changed. And it's like, you have to be updating those things as you go along. And if you decide not to add particular things, that can impact your revenue. You have to go all the way back and reevaluate. And people don't do that. They're too emotional at that stage. So it's important to remain logical as best as we can, and update numbers. And if we decide not to do certain things, we know that's going to have a negative impact, right? So having a plan is the key ingredient, the secret ingredient.
Yeah.
I do say.
To life.
Exactly. There we go. We figured, boom.
We are good. If you wanted the secret, there it is. Oh man.
Mic drop, episode over. We're done.
Just ask Kenny, book a call with him. He'll figure it all out.
There we go.
Oh, I love it. Now, one of the things, like a very common way that at least I start my research on, was it going to cost to get this house up and running, and what should I put in this house or on the grounds as amenities? Of course, I'm going through the Airbnb amenity list, right? And I'm starting to see what other houses have them. Hot tubs, saunas, things like that. One thing that can be really challenging for people, I think, when they're like, I got 10 grand. I want to put some money into the house. What can I do? I got all those things, or maybe I don't have those things. I've always tried to coach people on, sometimes you got to take a chance. You're not necessarily going to be able to say, okay, this $10,000 sauna is going to bring me an extra 15K a year. It's paid back in 2 years. I'm good. Like, it's not as easy to do that, in my opinion, in the short-term rental space, but you do want to build interest in your property. And just because it's not a checkbox on Airbnb doesn't mean it's not a sound investment for your property, depending on the guest avatar. And I think a lot of people get tripped up. Like, if they can't see a really sound ROI and numbers on something, they get scared to make the investment. And then once again, the home is right back where it started. So I call these Darkhorse amenities. In New England, I call that like a really, really cool swing set that the kids are going to geek out over the whole time that they're there. But how can somebody go about identifying different things to potentially put in their property? This used to be like wallpaper and good furnishings. Now, like, that's obvious, right? But how can somebody identify that and have the confidence to execute on adding some of these more unique amenities, but could really help their home stand out?
Okay. I love that question. I'm going to give a really long answer. So
I love it.
I'm going to break it into 2 parts. So
cool.
Part 1, let's talk about guest booking fatigue. All right. This is going to be a new concept that I think we're going to see more and more, and maybe eventually get more talked about. So I personally felt this too. When I go into Airbnb and I type in any market, okay, so let's say Newry, Sunday River, especially with some of the new builds recently, I mean, the properties are all really, really nice. They're new builds, views of Sunday River, whatever, they're all close to it. And there's just so many different options. And you're like, I don't know you get overwhelmed with the options. And as a guest who's looking to book, all right, I felt this too. And what's interesting how I kind of discovered this topic was I was talking to other people who were booking on Airbnb too. And they're like, can I let you in on a secret? Like, I don't even stay in Airbnbs anymore. And I'm like, whoa, what? You're like a host. Like, you're like a talking head in the industry. Like, what? And they're like, yeah, we don't do it because we just he's like, I don't have time to go out and stay at these places or like figure out which is going to be the right Airbnb for me when I can just, there's a Marriott. Okay. I know what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And the problem is, it's true. Like, you go in the Smokies and this Orlando, especially, or Broken Bow or Blue Ridge, like all the houses literally look the same. They have the same things, the same stuff, but you're not going to get the same experience. So it's kind of like a crapshoot. And so we have to, as hosts, we have to have something that makes our property look a little bit different, right? Now, it could be the new build with the views and the proximity to Sunday River and all this great stuff. But we have to have that one thing that highlights, that makes someone go, hold up, this speaks to me. And this stands out from everything else that I'm seeing.
Right.
It's like the X factor.
Exactly. And that's what the investment needs to go into. And it doesn't need to be a $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 investment. It could be as little as $10,000 or $5,000. So, I mean, like, jump straight into it. Lighting is a big one, right? Not just like, have your lights on when you take pictures, but like the game room, the neon lights, the outdoor lights, like all these different things to do to help you like get to that point that stand out with that X factor. Thank you, Will. But if you're wondering, because most of us aren't creative, give a quick example of this. A lot of people talk about now the Burger King method, which is, I don't know if have you guys heard of that before? Okay.
No.
So I have, because I listen to the podcast. That's why.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. Listen to the podcast. There we go. So for those of you who haven't heard it, Dave. No.
Whoops. I got catch up.
You missed that episode. Dave, sorry.
Yeah. Basically, McDonald's spends millions of dollars on marketing, knowing the right places to, set up a restaurant. Burger King, they don't spend millions of dollars. They wait till McDonald's puts their location, and they put their location across the street, right? However, so the moral of the story with short-term rentals is basically like, go and copy what successful people are doing. Look at the top properties and go and get their amenities. However, if it can be copied, you can be copied too, which brings the average down. Right? We don't want to be the average. So I talk about building moats, meaning things that separate us from everybody else. So although we should learn and take from the other properties, meaning like, they have hot tubs, I should probably have a hot tub too. Not like, a hole in the ground with a hose in it. And that's different. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, go get a hot tub, but you need an X factor. So if we take Burger King, for example, yes, they do that to McDonald's, but in 2019, they released, I sent an email about this, so if anybody read this, that's cool. But you guys heard of the Impossible Whopper?
I have not.
Saw it on the news, social media.
I'm 0 for 2.
All right.
I'm 0 for 2. So all I do is work on making my house's money.
So the Impossible Whopper is a plant-based burger that is supposed to taste exactly like a meat-based Whopper. right? So they literally like,
Okay.
but I mean, I kind of laugh at it because I'm like, they're cooking it on the same grill, so of course it's going to taste the same, right?
Some cross contamination.
right. But Burger King launched this in 2019, and they created this like whole marketing campaign and like like, oh, it's the same, and all these people like shocked that they were eating something plant-based and not meat, and their sales skyrocketed while everybody else in the fast food industry sales dipped down negative year over year.
Kidding.
And the Impossible Whopper exists today. Like you can go to Burger King and get one today. And it's pretty close. It's a little different, but yeah, it's pretty close. But they found something unique, their X factor, and leaned into that. And they made more money when other people weren't. McDonald's, all the fast food industry was down. And so for me, the lesson is like Burger King copy, but also have that X factor that is truly unique, that speaks to the guest avatar. And here's the crazy thing about the Impossible Whopper. McDonald's, they came out because people were like, oh, well, McDonald's could easily just go do the same thing. I don't know, like Arby's and all these other like burger places, Wendy's, but they're coming out and they're like, we can't, it's too expensive. We don't know how they're doing it to make sense. We can't replicate it. So that X factor can't just be something that somebody can easily replicate. It has to highlight something about your property that's unique, but draws people to it so that it stands out from amongst the herd. So
that's
awesome. Just another life lesson from Kenny Bedwell right there. You got to be different.
I told you this. I mean, now this is just a therapy session, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
should we do this again next week?
Yeah. Yeah. Same time next week. Yeah.
Honestly, I love this because there's an investor in Sunday River, good friend of mine. His name's Shane, and you know Shane, yeah. So he manages these just amazing houses down in Kissimmee in Florida. Mm-hmm. They look like Disney World when you walk into them, and he bought 2 houses up in the Bethel Newry market. And at least I know the Bethel one, he dropped a pool in, or actually he did this cool container pool so you could see the views even from underwater. And you walk in and he brought up his crew from Florida. I think it's a 5 or 6 bedroom. I mean, it's neat. It looks like a forest, literally, with like leaves coming from the ceiling when you walk into one of the rooms. It's super, super cool. And he's going to annihilate it. Like Sunday River's never seen anything like that. And it's still not as expensive as what you might have to do in the Smokies, where there's just so many properties, right? That dude is going to hit every number he ever wanted to in his pro forma. And I'm really confident about that. And, you know, that is going to be turned into a gold standard, in my opinion, in that market of how you stick out and how you have sort of like your one thing. In his case, it's design, you know, so I'm super excited for him.
Yeah. And what I'll say is like, that doesn't mean it's more competitive or like getting saturated. In my opinion, he's just doing stuff that's hard, and it's so hard and challenging that nobody else is going to do it. And I was pretty involved in that project. It's not even like this stuff was expensive. I'm like, it was just, you know, technical and part of a challenge, but that's the X factor, right? It's like doing stuff nobody else wants to do. That's
totally
figuring out it's a puzzle. And I made the comparison. I did like a workshop today, and I made the comparison. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, you know, with STR Insights, when I got started in that and got some people, you know, mentoring me and like advice from like tech startups and things, they're like, the name of the game is innovation, because somebody's going to come along and they're just going to replicate what you have every 6 months or a year or whatever. Hence, you know, the one company coming out with a top markets report with the same markets that I had 2 years ago. It's going to happen. It's expected. Expect that.
Yeah.
Because it's just how people, oh, wow, this is really popular. We're going to copy it, right? So you always have to be thinking ahead, and you always have to be thinking like, what is something that like makes me different and innovative? You know, and it's not, we're not building software here, so don't get crazy with it, you know, like that kind of, but it's like truly the uniqueness factor to your property, but it doesn't need to be this like overwhelming, you know, like scream in your face, like I'm completely like off left base kind of thing, you know?
Totally. And I think, you know, so how do you start identifying these things? You know, I always go back to, well, who's renting there? right?
Yeah.
Bingo.
Up in Sunday River,
Thing to do,
it's
yeah.
almost always, I'd say it's 90% families and then 10% more groups of friends or bachelorette parties or weddings. But 90% of the time it's families. And families, I know for me, my son's 5, my daughter's almost 3. The most important thing to me is keeping them occupied because it makes my vacation that much more relaxing. Right. And so I'm always thinking about, and like my wife and I, when we're booking vacation, the first thing that comes to mind before what do we want? It's like, what would keep the kids occupied?
Right.
And the more cool things there are to keep the kids occupied, the longer I'm making that vacation, right? If we don't have those activities or different things, then it's more than likely going to be a 3 or 4 day stop. It's definitely not going to be a 7-day stop like you would in some of the other markets. And so I always urge people, look at the houses, take a look at the amenities that they're offering. What kind of games do they have? What do you notice that's missing almost everywhere? I go back to the really cool, like a really unique, cool, big outdoor swing set and fire pit and like cool areas to hang out. I don't see a whole lot of pickleballers, pilgrimaging up to Sunday River, but that might be more important in a beach market down south where it's warm and people are going there in the winter to escape the cold and things like that. So it's not taking everything that you've ever seen, but it's definitely having an understanding of who's going to the market and what their needs might be, and not always just doing something because you see it at every property, but taking it a few steps past that.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's the number one. That's usually what I tell people is always look at the guest avatar who's coming there and how can you speak to them? Add amenities that speak to them. Here's what I specifically do that people can replicate. So I go and let's say I'm looking in Sunday River, Bethel area ski market, and I'm thinking about adding something, whether I know about it or not. I go to similar ski markets that might be more popular around the Northeast, and I see what they have. Are there any properties that are really unique that stand out? Do they have that particular amenity I'm looking for? Or if I don't know what amenities I want to add, what do any of the properties there have a unique amenity that I can steal from that market and put it in my market? Because that's probably going to work. If you take that and you put that in that market and it's doing well already here, there's not a whole lot of difference in avatar,
right.
and I think that's the easiest thing for people to do. And taking an idea from Orlando and putting it in Newry, that's interesting. That's unique.
Yeah.
That to me is that's bold.
Mickey Mouse on skis.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse on skis.
Crazy.
I get it, like family stuff, I guess. But theming it out like those, I've seen people do that in certain markets, like in cities. Like I saw, I met this girl, she did a Nightmare Before Christmas themed property in Indianapolis.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That's
and
niche.
I'm like, that's super niche. And she's like, Kenny, it's the weirdest thing. The only people that like to stay at my place are like kids, like birthday parties. And I'm like, well, yeah, you did Nightmare Before Christmas in Indianapolis.
You missed the mark.
And then I found a Harry Potter themed house in
that's
Columbus,
pretty cool.
Ohio. And it was cool, but it was like when you compared the revenue of these properties to properties that were doing well, that were just nice design and decor, they were literally doing worse than those, even though they're extremely unique, it wasn't speaking to the right people that you wanted there. The target demographic wasn't large enough for what you're looking for, in terms of that area. It's a great idea, just not in the right place. And so we have to, it's all about knowing our target audience and the size of it, kind of getting a feel for it, but looking at other markets and seeing what's worked there that are more established. If you go, for example, the Smokies, and you take an indoor cabin, which doesn't exist in North Carolina, but you put one in an indoor pool cabin, and you put that in North Carolina, it would just destroy everything there. Nothing there exists like that. And they're two separate markets. One is way behind the other one. and so many people are rushing to one over the other. It blows my mind, and it's like, do you not like, it's the same mountains? Like,
yeah.
Anyway, it's just interesting. Like the thought, like looking at what works in similar comparable markets and applying that to your market, and you'll get really good ideas from that. It's like the Pinterest board thing, just go,
totally. Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think that's how we kind of landed on pools in Sunday River. And of course, that's 100% summer amenity, but the maybe 24 houses tops that have a pool, and that maybe it's closer to just 10 or 12.
I think it's like 8 last I checked. Yeah.
They always track like 50K more a year in revenue, and it's not bringing them the revenue in the winter. It's always in like the late spring through the early fall. And the
you
other
make your money
thing
in the off season,
and they see longer lengths of stay over those summer months because there's just another activity at the home for people to do. And so it becomes such a strong, buying a home. There was one, Will, you sold it. It was about $1 million for that house. Maybe it was a little bit less, right off Grover Hill Road. And it already had the hot tub. It had a gorgeous pool with like a really nice patio around it, 4 or 5 bedroom house, a garage, like all the things. And it was funny that house even made it, like, I think it was about a week on the market. I couldn't even believe it lasted that long.
People were questioning the location, being 15 minutes away, right? But the house was the amenity. And that's something I've looked at, even Western North Carolina, comparing Asheville, taking that stuff, saying, how can we do this in Newry, a market so much smaller? And the idea tracks, to Kenny's point, of like, there's not a ton of houses in Asheville with pools, but the ones who have them murder it, right?
Yeah.
So bring that here.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. There's ideas. There's even ideas from like Newry Bethel where people have some unique X factor that I'm like, hey, that would actually work over here. There's one property, for example, has like a spa thing going on, with a really cool like in-ground like hot tub area and like kind of pergola.
They have the bathrobes hanging in the
front. It's just
Skitopia.
Like marketable. I'm like, man, that's like really, that's not hard to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, that's a really good idea. Have like kind of like a wellness spa thing going on, and that works in a lot of places. That's not just cool ski market, So
that house I think does around $400K a year.
It's stupid.
Now here's the funny thing.
Never change the photos. They don't revenue manage. Yeah.
Here's the thing about that house, and this is going to tell you the importance of everything that Kenny's talking about, and what Will just mentioned. They're only on Airbnb. They don't use dynamic pricing, and they have no PMS or tech stack or anything. And we know this because we know the owner and she told us. So, and it's interesting. It is funny. Then like you start to marry all the cool strategy stuff that we teach about in the masterminds, and you don't even need to be in a mastermind to learn a tech stack and how to use it. You take all this amazing, like, I guess that speaks to the importance of what we're talking about. And imagine if that owner did have their stuff dialed in on multiple listing sites and revenue management, they're probably going to end up being closer to 500K in revenue. I think their photos are the original, like, photos from 10 years ago too. And they
from the listing.
From the listing.
Yeah.
Are they accepting any offers right now? I've tried.
I wish. I have too. Yeah, that owner owns 3 properties, and they sold their 4th one last year, and that was a gorgeous property too. They've built a really great business for themselves, and a few of their houses are all like that. They're great. They're fantastic. And she's the owner. She's a great advocate for the community too. I mean, I've only talked to her a few times, but she's definitely a good person. So she crushes it.
That's awesome.
So with that, we're coming to the top of the hour. Kenny, how can people find you if they want to locate a property, work with your team? Like, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah. So the best way to get in touch, strinsights.com. You can also email me. It is Ken. It's my formal name. So watch out. Kenneth.Bedwell, Bedwell at strinsights.com. Follow me on Instagram. So just so everybody knows, I do have a bet with a mortgage broker, Brenna Carls. So long story short, if I lose, so it's all about followers on Instagram. So if I
we can buy you some of those.
I know. We agreed that we wouldn't do that, but if I lose, and we also have the same social media manager, so she sees it. So it's a fair fight. It's basically a bet whoever gets the most followers, and if I lose, I have to sing karaoke publicly. And if she loses, she's gonna have to play the bagpipes publicly. So anyway, I don't want to lose. So please follow me on Instagram at Kenny_Bedwell. The content's really fun. Like Will was saying, I got some good content, educational humor. Also make fun of people too. So, it's just all good around.
I like it. I love it.
So follow me on Instagram.
And I'm the guy that's following both of you. So I have some hard choices to make now.
Yeah, I know, right? Just give her a quick unfollow for about another 2 weeks, and then you can follow her back. And listen, if you don't have an Instagram account, create an Instagram account and then just follow me, and that's it. Don't get off after that. That's all I need. So
I follow one person. That's all you need. That's all you need. Kenny Bedwell. I love it. Please, but pretty please. Awesome. Well, Kenny, dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate you're always dropping knowledge. Our first three-peat guest, so that's pretty cool. Crown goes to you, my friend. And everyone be on the lookout. Feel free to like, follow, and subscribe. Hassle-free RE. We also have our live show Thursdays at 3, which this will play at. And with that, have a great weekend, everyone. Happy hosting.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Hassle-Free RE. We hope you found today's tips and stories as inspiring and useful as I did. Remember, success in the short-term rental industry is all about learning, adapting, and staying one step ahead. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review or comment on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Plus, we'd love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And follow us at Hassle-Free RE on social media for more tips and updates. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep it hassle-free.